One of the wealthiest people in the world just finished buying a whole city block in Miami. And what he's building on it, it's going to change the city permanently. In this video, we're going over the Citadel mega project in Brickell, who Ken Griffin is, why he moved here, what he's actually building, and what this project means for Miami's real estate market, its economy, and its positioning in the world. I'm Jimmy Crisancho, a Miami real estate agent. This project is one of the most significant things happening in Miami right now. Let's break it down. First, let's start with who Ken Griffin is and why does he even matter. Ken Griffin is the founder and CEO of Citadel, one of the most successful hedge funds in the world, and Citadel Securities, one of the most powerful market makers in the world of finance. His personal net worth sits at roughly $50 billion. In 2022, he announced he was relocating both companies from Chicago to Miami, a move that sent shockwaves to the finance world. At the time, the people in New York and Chicago saw it as a bold statement. In Miami, people saw it as a turning point, because when someone with that kind of capital and global reach picks up and moves his entire operation to your city, the world takes notice. Since 2022, Griffin has spent over $1 billion acquiring waterfront estates, commercial properties, and land across Brickell, Miami, and Palm Beach. But the centerpiece of all of it is what's happening at 1201 Brickell Bay Drive. Now, let's talk about what exactly he's building, because the project has evolved significantly. It took 4 years and more than $770 million in land acquisitions alone for Griffin to assemble a full city block in Brickell. That process finished on July 28, 2026. He has now secured every parcel on the block, including buying out an entire 22-story condominium across the street to demolish it for future developments, and relocating a 121-year-old historic cottage once the office of Miami's first decision to preserve it rather than tearing it down. On that assembled site, the plan has been redefined since the original announcement. The tower at 1201 Brickell Bay is now a 52-story, 1.7 million square foot, all-office, super tall, rising 958 feet above Brickell Bay on the Biscayne Bay waterfront. The hotel component, originally planned for the upper floors, was removed entirely in favor of more office spaces. The full program includes Class A office floors throughout, with Citadel and Citadel Securities occupying a third of the building. The remaining spaces will be leased to top-tier tenants. The project is being developed in partnership with related companies, one of the most respected real estate developer firms in the country, known for projects like Hudson Yards in New York City. The total project costs approximately $2.5 billion, which Griffin himself confirmed. That makes it one of the most expensive single-tower commercial developments in Florida's history. And when you factor in the full block assemblage and planned ancillary buildings, the broader investment is well beyond that. And that's just the office tower. The broader development in the block, it's even bigger. Alongside super tall headquarters, Griffin has revised plans to include a 300-unit residential apartment building and 1,420 spaces for parking garage on adjacent parcels he owns nearby. He's also considering a hotel across from the super tall, separate from the office tower. What started as a single headquarter announcement in 2022 has expanded into a full block urban development that will reshape this entire stretch of Brickell Bay for decades to come. Before I get into what this really means for real estate, if you're researching Miami and you want to understand how Brickell fits into the picture, download my free Miami relocation survival guide. 7 neighborhoods, every price point, honest breakdowns of who each one of it's built for. The link is in the description below. Now, let's talk about the architect, because this building wasn't designed by just anyone. The design architect is Foster and Partners, the London-based firm founded by Sir Norman Foster, one of the most celebrated architects alive. Their portfolio includes the Hearst Tower in New York, 30th Street Mary Axe in London, the Reichstag Dome in Berlin, and Apple Park in Cupertino. In Miami, they designed a building that tapers slightly as it rises, with a cone and spire profile and a system of horizontal louvers across the facade, drawing from Florida's vernacular architecture to shade the interiors while framing framing panoramic views of Biscayne Bay. The crown has been designed with a highlighting system capable of multicolor illuminations across the upper levels and the building's full facade. This will be one of the most architecturally significant buildings ever constructed in Florida. Now, let's talk about what this project is doing to Miami's office market, because the real estate implications are direct and measurable. Before Griffin moved here, Brickell had a functioning office market, but it was a regional one. The buildings were good, the tenants were top financial firms as a serious alternative to New York. That has changed. Citadel arrived in 2022, triggered a wave. Hedge funds, private equity firms, family offices, and technology companies followed. The office market at 830 Brickell, which opened in 2023, filled with blue chip tenants including Citadel, Microsoft, and others. Brickell's office rents have risen steadily. Banco Santander broke ground on a Miami office in 2026. New to market office activity in Miami went from 9% of all office activity to a figure that reflects a structural shift, not a temporary one. One commercial real estate broker put it plainly: you can point directly to Citadel's entrance into this market as the reason rents are now high enough to support building new office towers. Without Citadel, the math on building new Class A office space in Brickell doesn't work the same way. With Citadel, Miami is competing for global tenants who previously would have only considered New York or London. Here's why that matters for residential real estate specifically. Every finance professional who relocates to Miami for a Citadel job, a hedge fund position, or a role at one of the firms that followed needs a place to live. These are high earners, often coming from New York or Chicago, who are used to spending on housing, who want walkability, and who are looking at Brickell and downtown Miami specifically because of their proximity to the office corridor. That demand is not speculative, it is structural. It shows up in Brickell condo prices, it shows up in the luxury rental market, and it shows up in the pre-construction bar pool for every significant project in Brickell up through the entertainment district, because the employee base that Citadel and its ecosystem of follower firms is building in Miami is exactly the demographic that buys into well-positioned urban product. Let's talk about what this signals about Miami at a macro level. This is the part in real estate that most people are thinking about, but not really saying it out loud. Ken Griffin told Bloomberg he believes Miami may overtake Manhattan as the heart of the financial markets in the United States. He said it publicly, not privately. For a man with his credibility and his resources, that is not a casual comment. He has staked $2.5 billion of construction capital, over $770 million in land, and his company's global headquarters on that belief. That's not a bet you can make unless you have a deep conviction. What Griffin is doing in Brickell is what visionary developers have always done in cities that are on the rise. He is arriving early enough to shape the neighborhood rather than simply join it. The same principle applies to every level of this market. The investors who bought into Brickell a decade ago, before the restaurants, the luxury towers, and the Citadel announcement, made the most money. The question for buyers in Miami today is not whether the city is growing. It clearly is. The question is where in the growth cycle you're entering and which neighborhoods are still in early chapters of their story. The bottom line on the Citadel project is this: a $2.5 billion super tall headquarters designed by one of the world's greatest living architects on a full city block assembled over 4 years at a cost of over $770 million in land alone, developed in partnership with a firm that built Hudson Yards by a man who moved his company here because he believes in Miami becoming the financial capital of the country. Site work is already underway. Groundbreaking is expected in the second half of 2026, and completion is projected for the early 2030s. This is not a rendering, this is not a proposal, this is happening. And that wraps up this one. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for all things Miami lifestyle and real estate.